Every ride home is different. A lot of times when I feel like I'm used to getting up in the morning and driving 3-4 hours into these prisons, the middle of nowhere, to pick up another lifer, I figured I'd be used to it by now, but I'm not. Knowing that I'm picking someone up that just finished doing 25 years kind of takes me to how it felt back in 2002 when I was there.
Good morning, sir. We're here to pick up Mr. Stanley Bailey.
Okay. From Ironwood or?
From Ironwood, yes.
Okay. So you're gonna have to pull over here and wait over here.
Perfect. Just make a U-turn.
Right here.
Okay.
When I was incarcerated, I was a teenager, 16 at the time. I took a 12-year plea bargain for an attempted murder. Ended up doing 10 years and 8 months. I got released when I was 27. And I'm looking at the world to kind of find that release for my brothers and sisters that are still locked up. Being able to help someone makes me grateful. It's like a privilege, like an honor.
Stanley, what's up?
Thanks for the ride.
You ready or what?
Yeah, more than ready.
Welcome home.
Thank you.
We're gonna try to take care of the first few hours at the very least.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
When I do this, it's open-heartedly. I don't know who that person is, why he's getting out, why he was arrested, why he did all that time. But saying, you know what, regardless of what happened, I'm here. Most of the guys that get out have families that are deceased. Most of them don't have friends anymore. A lot of these guys are actually scared. Their biggest fear is to fail.
You know, I'm not young anymore. I gotta start a whole new career. So I'm pretty much starting from scratch. I'm gonna have my hands full just getting on my feet.
It comes with the territory, you know. When I got out, I had a pretty heavy burden on my shoulders. You know, I had already had to pay rent.
Yeah.
And then not having like somebody to really talk to and could relate, that just tore me down.
The fear of going back, the fear of saying, you know, this is a revolving door for you. Being institutionalized.
The emotions that you go through, you don't know how to deal with them. You always try to isolate yourself. Sometimes I feel like I'm still institutionalized.
I used to go in the bathroom, take a shower, and I used to just cry. I didn't know how to deal with it.
Of all the things that everybody talked about doing when I got out, I told him, hey, I just want to sit on the grass under a tree. I haven't been under a tree in, 25 years. It's beautiful out here. I don't have any time to waste on jail anymore. Yeah, this is gonna take some getting used to. It's real uncomfortable. It's gonna take a minute. I haven't had a car go by me in almost 30 years.
I think it's therapeutic for me. Releasing some of that information that I know and teaching them kind of how it's gonna be. How do you want this to end up? How do you want to continue living your life? Within those first 24 hours, if you don't have the support necessary or the belief in yourself that's necessary for you to continue on, then you'll struggle.
Coming out, it's a lot of pressure. When I first got out, I was scared. I'm not gonna lie, I was terrified.
We give hope to other people that are behind the walls, still just waiting to come out, and we make this a safe place for people to transition to society. Welcome to your house, because this is gonna be your house.
3 days ago, he was a lifer. His mentality was as a lifer. And a lifer is, I'm spending the rest of my life in prison. And all of a sudden, boom, you're out. The $200 that they give you as escape money, and for them to say, okay, go live a life. Go try to make it. People never see the potential in someone. They figure that we could categorize them as they were. They're prisoners, they're inmates. That's what they are. When we're talking about throw away the key, lock them up, we don't give people enough opportunities. I think that's our biggest problem.
In this Maine prison, in the past, it didn't take much to get thrown into solitary confinement, referred to here as SEG. Brad Chesnell recalls the time he spent in segregation.
I've seen guys chew on their flesh to get attention, and spit it at officers. It's a mental flip-flop because there was no interaction really. It's basically staring at blank, painted white walls. The shortest stay down there was one of the last times, it was 10.5 months.
But that was before Joseph Pont became the Corrections Commissioner in Maine 3 years ago. Now no one can stay in segregation for more than 72 hours without the commissioner signing off on it. This is one sweeping change Mr. Pont made to reform the culture of corrections in the prison.
The thing is that we taught officers how to work in a pretty black and white world, and now we're trying to insert some gray into it. So we're asking you to look in the gray area to make a decision. Does this guy truly need to go to SEG? And if he does, how long does he need to stay there? We're not here to punish anybody. So if we can enlist their cooperation through positive reinforcement, then why not do that? If you do something like that again, you'll never get it off again.
Mr. Pont is leaving small-town Maine and going to New York to be the city's new corrections commissioner. He will oversee a jail system that's 6 times as large and far more violent. But the biggest obstacle will be to change some of the prevailing attitudes among the corrections officers.
The more traditional places have been, the more difficult to change. It's not even the numbers. Obviously, New York's a much bigger system, but you may have a great program, but the work gets done with the officers on the floor. So convincing them of a new program or a new approach, without their buy-in, I don't care who you are, you're probably not going to get much done.
Mr. Pont faced a similar challenge in Maine, where severe punitive methods were regularly used without review or question. Lance Tapley is an investigative reporter who has covered Maine prisons for almost 10 years and documented the use of excessive force against inmates.
In addition to solitary confinement, in and of itself is a very destructive thing to people. There were these, what I call them, official beatings, called cell extractions. It was done hundreds of times a year. Because a prisoner in a solitary cell might be disobedient, Guards would suit up in body armor, you know, a real SWAT team. 5 of them would go into a cell, they'd drag him out, they'd cut off all of his clothes, and then they'd take him naked down the hallway to a restraint chair. But Pont basically stopped it. There are a few that go on still, but he proved that they were completely unnecessary. This was gratuitous violence on the part of the guards and the administration.
We make enough mistakes in this business, and we should stand up and admit to them, and how do we make it better?
Part of making it better is being open. We were allowed to walk through the Maine State Prison, get inside cells, and talk to officers and inmates.
At 6:30, the nurse comes and gives me my meds. She gives me my meds through this tray slot.
This is a new mental health unit that was used for punitive segregation before Mr. Pont's arrival. When he slashed the population in solitary by half, he repurposed the space to better serve the mentally ill.
Card is the second word. What's the first word?
Bringing some of the changes Mr. Pont made in Maine to Rikers will not be easy. For one, Norman Seabrook, longtime president of the Corrections Officers Union, does not share Mr. Pont's vision.
I don't think that an individual that slashes an inmate or assaults a correction officer or breaks the jaw of a correction officer or bites the finger off of a correction officer should get what Joe wants to call a timeout. Timeout is what you give your grandchildren. I've seen a lot of commissioners come here with this, I have a dream attitude. Well, I have a dream too. And the dream is that we work together to accomplish the most important and most fundamental things that we can. That's safety and security. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time.
This is it, home sweet home.
Mr. Pont's first day on the job is April 7th.
10 years ago, the philosophy was, let's not make them worse than when they got in. I mean, that was kind of the philosophy. Now there's a good evidence to say we can actually make them better.
I've had loved ones that have been incarcerated, so I know all too well what it's like to hope that your loved one makes better decisions. I think about just my life in general, how I was probably one bad decision away from being in a correctional institution myself. Much better. So tomorrow I want to see the unhooking because it's supposed to be a joint effort.
When Nika Jones Tapia was appointed to lead Cook County Jail last spring, she made headlines because she's a psychologist and not a law enforcement officer. She's trained to view inmates more as patients than as prisoners.
My behavior was beyond bizarre.
I don't like it.
I've been diagnosed with bipolar and ADHD since the age of 13.
Illinois took all these mental health places and shut them down. And people like me and people out there that have mental health have nowhere to go. And the only thing you know how to do is survive on the street. And if you can't survive on the street, the police will come and get you and bring you in here.
Stop staring. When you see the number of people that we're dealing with mental illness, it's an awful truth of what the reality is for so many correctional institutions. Law enforcement in general and correctional facilities specifically were not meant to, cater to the severely mentally ill.
Just my imagination once again.
Nearly a third of all inmates at Cook County Jail suffer from psychological disorders, twice the number of 5 years ago.
Our staff identify people every day.
You wake up from nightmares with cold sweats?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever heard of post-traumatic stress disorder?
Retail theft.
Retail theft?
Yeah.
Okay. The guys that are mentally ill typically are in on retail theft, criminal trespassing, and possession.
Inmates receive psychiatric care from on-site medical staff.
Ran around for my depression, Paxil for mood swings. I'm getting on Depakote.
I was taking Zoloft and Remeron.
I was put on a different medication, which is Effexor. That in itself has been awakening. I feel like a completely different person.
Be it the police, be it...
Last year, Dr. Jones Tapia helped create a mental health transition center here, where inmates learn to manage their behavior and hold down a job.
To authority. And then we forget it. I don't want to do this. I ain't going to do that. And you don't even know. You might be cutting your own blessing off because of your mouth. That's why a lot of times what do we have to do? Just don't say nothing. And just follow the rules.
She's telling you, when you get out, the next day I'll have you a job.
I've fallen into a situation where I just kind of gave up on life for a short period of time. I was charged with domestic battery and a possession charge. The depression was at like a rock bottom when I came in.
We choose to make the necessary changes in our lives to be successful.
So far, 43 graduates of the transition center have been released, and according to the jail, none have been incarcerated again.
This change must be forever.
You know, if someone doesn't have the basic tools they need to survive, they're more likely to recommit a crime and come back. So we know that it's not just a mental health problem. We know it's more of, you know, a well-being problem.
We started working with Dr. Jones about 4 or 5 years ago when she worked for the hospital system. We're looking for a full-time executive director.
And then we're ready to go?
We didn't need to search anymore. We had somebody that knew corrections, knew the inner workings of the place, but yet had this vision that was beyond the walls, about fixing people and about how we were going to make communities better, and she got it.
I do.
Much of my childhood, my father spent some time incarcerated. After he got out, I saw him build his own business, has not lived in, you know, a life of crime since then. You know, he really turned everything around. And while some people may say that, you know, those experiences made me a quote unquote at-risk youth, I say that it exposed me to real life. It exposed me to a life that so many people experience and unfortunately don't have the ability to bounce back from.
Next family, please. Next family. Come on. Next family, please.
So you're almost there, so close. I promise you, you're gonna get in, right? I'm not gonna go against my word. You're gonna get in, okay? Don't get all emotional. You'll be there, baby. We got somebody inside talking to you mommy right now, okay? I got you covered, okay?
I couldn't bring her a can of milk in or her wipes. I had to take her wipes out. Oh, she's sleepy.
Look at the camera.
And dude, when you come home, I'm gonna move with you.
You gonna come move with me?
I would like, may I have, how about, y'all look so good, a green one. I don't want to drink it.
It's good.
It's ugly.
But it's good.
Oh, it didn't hurt.
Told you it was good.
Oh, you know how to cut her in the lines, Kai?
Anybody want some pencil?
Inmates will stay out here. After your families leave, inmates should stay here.
Ryan, come here. Come here. Let's go.
Thank you for coming out. Love you. Love you, Betty.
Phoenix 10K. Okay, I love you.
I love you more than anything, and I'm sorry that I'm not there, but they're trying to love you. You know, to be there when you go and give you advice on things and see your graduation.
Money for you there, okay?
Go hang out with your brothers.
It was fun, but it wasn't fun. When I left, I tried not to think about it as much because I knew that would just make me even more emotional than I already am. And there was nothing I could do about it, so it's like, you have to accept the fact that you have to leave. I'm kind of used to this stuff because she's been in jail before, and also my dad left me when I was 3, and he died when I was 9, so it's like, I'm sort of kind of getting used to the feel of like getting hurt.
Every ride home is different. A lot of times when I feel like I'm used to getting up in the morning and driving 3-4 hours into these prisons, the middle of nowhere, to pick up another lifer, I figured I'd be used to it by now, but I'm not. Okay. When I was incarcerated, I was a teenager, 16 at the time. I took a 12-year plea bargain for an attempted murder. Ended up doing 10 years and 8 months. I got released when I was 27. And I'm looking at the world to kind of find that release for my brothers and sisters that are still locked up. Being able to help someone makes me grateful. It's like a knowing that I'm picking someone up that just finished doing 25 years kind of takes me to how it felt back in 2002 when I was there.
Good morning, sir. We're here to pick up Mr. Stanley Bailey.
Okay. From Ironwood or?
From Ironwood, yes.
Okay. So you're gonna have to pull over here and wait over here.
Perfect. Just make a U-turn.
Privilege, like an honor.
Stanley, what's up?
Thanks for the ride.
You ready or what?
Yeah, more than ready.
Welcome home.
Thank you.
We're gonna try to take care of the first few hours at the very least.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
When I do this, it's open-heartedly. I don't know who that person is, why he's getting out, why he was arrested, why he did all that time. But saying, you know what, regardless of what happened, I'm here. Most of the guys that get out have families that are deceased. Most of them don't have friends anymore. A lot of these guys are actually scared. Their biggest fear is to fail.